Hi everyone, folks are pouring in. This is like one of the best parts of doing Zoom is just like seeing all the names come in and welcoming everyone. A lot of familiar names. I would say faces, but it's just names. It's just names. I always like to recommend, feel free to say hello in the chat, drop a little emoji, a smiley face, let us know you're here, let us know you're present. I mean, you could be making dinner, you could be walking your dog, you could be doing anything, but if you've got some keys in front of you, hello, hi. Yeah, send us some love in the chat. This is great. We've got a really full house tonight, so I'm really excited and grateful for everyone taking the time to join us. My goodness. And I always get lost in the chat. Now I just want to be in here and saying hello to everyone. We're all super excited. Thanks for your patience. Oh my goodness. My heart is already so full. Thanks for being here. Oh my God, so much love. Okay, let me pay attention. If anyone doesn't know who I am, my name is Adeyemi and I'm the program manager at Nia Center for the Arts. You might have seen my floating face in a few panels. We've got some amazing, just like truly phenomenal people here tonight in this amazing space. And I always like to say there's so many like Zoom links and sessions and panels and conversations that are happening tonight. So I'm really grateful that you picked this link to click and sit down and talk to us. And I think you are in for a huge treat in doing so. Like truly, I feel like this is one of the most, it's the most unique artist talk that I've been in or hosted since the pandemic. So I'm truly fortunate to be flanked by such amazing folks. The chat is just blowing up. Seem to work. Oh, no one's late. Hannah, you are not late. We are late, Hannah. You are not late. This is great. So I think we're going to get started. I'll just begin with some housekeeping. You know, typically if we were in a regular space, I'd point to the washrooms and I'd point to like the snacks in the back and etc. But I think we've all been really familiar with Zoom and the Zoom platform, but there's two main ways that you can engage with us this evening. First one is through the chat, which most people have found their way to by now. Feel free to send them some love, virtual snaps, emojis, if you hear something that really resonates with you, if you want to chat with some of the other panelists privately. You know, all this can go down in the chat, but we do have some time set aside this evening for an audience Q&A. So if you've got a burning question from one of the panelists or the curator or all the panelists, please do feel free to put that in the little Q&A box. If you put in the chat, there's like a 9 out of 10 chance that I will miss it. One of my keen panelists may pick up on it and remind me to ask it, but it just moves so quickly. So to make sure your questions get asked, please do keep them in the Q&A and keep all the love and engagement in the chat, and I think will be great. But like I said, my name is Adeyemi and I'm the program manager at Nia Center for the Arts. If you don't know who Nia Center is, I'll just keep it brief. We are a Black art center here in Toronto, Ontario that's dedicated to supporting, promoting, and showcasing an appreciation for the arts from across the African diaspora. And that looks like everything from exhibitions like this, professional development opportunities such as this as well, youth engagement, and more. We're so honored and thrilled to be able to be partnering on this curator in residence program with the McMaster Museum of the Arts in order to support, you know, an up and coming, phenomenal, just like world creating, genre bending curator that is stylo starr, and we'll talk about stylo a little bit, but this program is designed to provide an opportunity to an emerging curator. You know, curatorial practice is a field that we just love to support when it comes to getting more Black artists working in this space. So we're really fortunate to be able to be co-presenting this program and this exhibition with Nia Center, or with the McMaster Museum of the Arts. I also feel like, you know, if this was any other event, we'd be in the same space, kind of on the same ground, you know, in the same area. But, you know, we're calling in these panelists. Some folks are from Montreal, some of us are from Toronto, some of us are in Hamilton. I'm here in Toronto, but we are on, you know, the same Turtle Island. Our grounds are seemingly different, but, you know, we are part of the same space, and I would be remiss to not acknowledge that and to thank the original caretakers of this land and try and do my own part in order to, you know, sustain this place. And I think I try and be as grounded as possible in doing these online events, and I think an acknowledgement of the land always helps me kind of like just settle myself. There's a lot of folks in this room and energy is high, but I think grounding myself in this way is probably one of the best ways for myself. But I also just want to share a land acknowledgement that we can all kind of share together. And, you know, you might have your own personal one that you want to stay on your own. feel free to put me on mute, but I think it's important that we take this time to acknowledge the land and its original keepers. So I do want to acknowledge and give thanks to the Huron-Wendat Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, the Mississaugas of the First Credit Nation, Mississaugas of the Scugog Island First Nation, and Six Nations of the Grand River as traditional inhabitants of the lands of the City of Toronto, where I stand on the bones of Indigenous peoples of this land, and we stand together. We also acknowledge all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Today we pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. So thanks for allowing me to take that space and that time to, ground myself and remember again the original caretakers of this land. And it does kind of help me feel like we're all together. So I appreciate that. There's a lot of introductions because there's a lot of phenomenal people. So I'm going to stop talking because I feel like we're all here for certain people. It's certainly not me. But I want to introduce Pamela Edmonds right now, who's the brainchild of, this program and has been working so intensely with Stylo to help, bring this exhibition and her learnings to fruition. So originally from Montreal, Edmonds holds a BFA in studio art and art history and an MA in art history from Concordia University. She also has held curatorial positions at A Space Gallery, the Art Gallery of Peterborough, and most recently, the Thames Art Gallery in Chatham, where she served as the curator/director. Edmonds has been an advocate for inclusive curatorial practices and cultural equity throughout her career, which is evidenced by her work with numerous collectives and grassroots organizations. Edmonds is currently based in Hamilton, Ontario, where she holds the position of senior curator at the McMaster Museum of Art. I also just want to say, I think I mentioned this in the last session, but Pamela, you kind of are the fairy godmother, the ultimate catalyst, the ultimate springboard for all things just furthering of one's career. And it came up so much in that last session. You really have just done so much to support the careers of folks who are just kind of stepping out and learning and doing their best to navigate this really colonial art space that we're in. So kudos and big ups to you for sure. And thank you so much for helping to bring all this together.
Thank you. Don't get me emotional already. It's too early yet, but thank you, Adom. Thank you so much. Hello out there. Happy Mother Earth Day, everybody. Welcome. And thank you all for being here for this special event. It's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for this day for the virtual launch of the On exhibition, The Cut, the Tear, and the Remix. Contemporary Collage and Black Futures, curated by the amazing stylo starr. We're really happy to be launching this project with the museum's new rebrand, with our new website, which we launched last week. We had another event last week with the launch of Pitch Black Arts Magazine, which features all of the artists in a special editorial. So I hope that people are, don't sleep on, don't sleep on that. Get your issues, issue 2, which is available at pitchmag.ca, which features, Black creativity out of Hamilton. We want to support Angelo and his creative visions in bringing that work to us. And so for me, I'm speaking from Hamilton, also situated on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and the Mississaugas, within lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. And for me too, I also want to express gratitude to all the First Nations and the Métis and Inuit people who have been taking care of this land on Turtle Island from time immemorial and who continue to do so. And I also acknowledge and I'm thankful for that caretaking, and I'm interested in acknowledging ways that we can find support decolonial and Indigenous movements for sovereignty and self-determination. And so, so the Remix Project, it's an output of a mentorship between Nia Center and the museum. And, you got to thank the people that give you the dollars, right? So we got to thank Canada Council for the Arts. in their sector innovation and development program, who gave us funding for in part for this program. And so, you know, as I talked about last time, this program has moved to a remote internship. We wanted to have an on-site, you know, have a program in Hamilton and Toronto in our physical spaces, but you know, that wasn't going to happen. The pandemic, you know, put a wrench in that idea. But you know, I'm really happy to see this program and this project come to fruition in such a beautiful and amazing way. And I feel fortunate to have been part of it. I want to thank SPATIAL-ESK and Kofi for their artistic, we call them wizards, their artistic wizardry, you know, for cooking up some really amazing, you know, series of rooms and works. You know, Kofi, for your audio-visual tracks, which he'll talk about, which are so unique. I also want to thank the MMA, the museum staff, in particular Elise Klinning, who, you know, kind of was behind the scenes, making sure the coding was right. You know, that is so important. Also Alika at Nia, Lydia and Adom at Nia Center. All the artists for their participation, for sharing your work with us. And so, yeah, so now I'll introduce stylo, but, you know, with your bio, and we can get started. So stylo starr, she refers to herself as a visual alchemist, which, as I say, I always love that term. I think it's you know, so indicative of what you do. She's currently based in Hamilton. She has a BFA from Brock University and studied design at Mohawk College. She's a founding member of COBRA, which is the Coalition of Black and Racialized Artists in Hamilton. And she's worked with a variety of organizations like Center 3 for Artistic and Social Practice, Hamilton's Arts Council, and McMaster. She curated the 2020 graduate student exhibition. And she's exhibited most recently at the Art Gallery of Burlington, the Art Gallery Hamilton, and is known for her own multi-layered collage work, which has been featured in public installations, international publications, and on apparel. And so starr's visual investigations surround predominantly Black folks and their relationship to the basic principles and elements of design, reaffirming their agency as revered subjects of art history. You know, I mean, what else can you say? So it's such important work. And so thank you, everyone. Enjoy the event. And stylo, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pamela. My face is already hurting from just beaming. Thank you everyone for attending, for showing up tonight. Like echoing Adom, you could have picked anywhere to be tonight. You could have picked any stream to be tuning into tonight, and you picked this one, so thank you. I can't even believe that we're here already, Pamela. It's been such a long road, and I was feeling really good with the weekly check-ins and, you know, just kind of building this project together. But I am so incredibly blessed to have been able to work on this project with Pamela, and to be supported by the museum, and to be supported by Nia, and then to also just be able to meet all these incredible artists. I'm so excited to get into like the part 2, because last week we got to meet the first half. It's just always so, I'm just always lost for words. We didn't really know how this was going to come about. We knew that we were really for sure gung-ho with a publication, because it was something tangible, something that both Pamela and myself were very familiar with working on. So it was like, no brainer, we'll at least have a publication. But the website, we weren't really sure how that was going to roll out. As mentioned, I did curate last year's graduate show for McMaster's School of the Arts for the SUMA show. And it was supposed to be a physical show. It was supposed to be in the museum. And I think it was the day we finished studio visits and we were about to start installing, things kind of came crashing down. I actually ended up meeting Angelo from Pitch Magazine that day as well. So a lot of cataclysmic things happened in that very same time, and we didn't really know how things were gonna pan out. So with that show, we ended up having a really wonderful website scrolling experience, just kind of to compensate for not being in a space. But with this show, we were kind of like, okay, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna make this the next level? And we honestly did not know for a very long time. And then enter all these wonderful artists that we get to work with and that we curated as, you know, what our presentation was going to be. Our focus being collage, the Afrofuture, two things that I'm very conscious about in my work. And I wanted to explore collage and how that looks in different ways. So last week we were kind of looking through more of the paper or 2D based collageists or collage artists. And this week we want to look more at the 3D, digital, I guess the super meta type approach of collage. If you joined us 2 weeks prior, you will be familiar with Kofi, who is the audio wizard behind the space. He led us through some incredible coding wizardry. I'm going to keep using that word because it's the most accurate word for me to describe. Yeah, and so things kind of came together, lost my train of thought, sorry about that. Just thinking about the wonders of this website. We got to meet these incredible artists. Then I got to meet and walk through this incredible space that SPATIAL-ESK had created through his our studio space, or our studio visit that we had together. And things kind of clicked at that moment. I kind of froze. I remember asking SPATIAL-ESK, can I screen record what you're showing me right now? Because I think this is what we need. And I brought it back to Pamela, and it was just explosion after brain explosion. Like, I think we got it. Eureka, huzzah. So it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's been such a wealth of an experience, just kind of learning the technology, learning limitations, learning how to break past those limitations of technology. Ever grateful for SPATIAL-ESK and Elise for like tag teaming this past couple weeks to kind of just prop the world up onto the website. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But yeah, we're gonna get into it because I could ramble about this all night. I'm going to introduce SPATIAL-ESK first because he is going to be the one kind of walking us through the space. He'll be sharing his screen, kind of giving you the firsthand look. So SPATIAL-ESK is an artist of Zambian heritage based in Canada, currently in Toronto, I believe. He explores the interplay between urban space, architecture, and cultural experience. His work comprises of carefully photographed collage models, which bring imagined and constructed worlds to life. He uses collage as a medium to present disruptive and provoking concepts, which often materialize into larger temporary and built works. These collages form constructs or spatial narratives, which challenge social, political, and cultural norms. The theme of juxtaposition is also common to his eclectic cultural experiences of living in South Africa and England. His work has since been published in Blueprint Magazine, UK, Burrasca Journal, Italy, Parksify, California, and has had work exhibited at the Future of Art exhibition at Tate Modern in London. He currently works from his studio in Toronto, and we are so, so, so grateful to have you as a part of the show. Welcome, SPATIAL-ESK. Take it away.
I don't know if you can tell from my face here, but like this is such an exciting gathering of artists. Like the whole process, I've just got to echo what Stylo was saying, like just seeing all the different artists come together. And I think like the way I work, I love to kind of create disruptive spaces, just like ask questions, you know, push the boundaries. And I know we can't be in a physical space right now, but we thought, let's flip this onto an opportunity, something that we can just kind of push out the boundaries of the walls, you know, and kind of try and redefine and like dignify the pieces with their own bespoke and unique spaces, you know. So like, let me just, if I can share my screen when I get.
Absolutely share a screen. I also, before you do that, I want to shout out the 3 other artists who are here, because as we move into the exhibition space, you will see the work of Anna Binta. Wait for us and say hello. Young Yemi, as well as Kofi as well. And so we're gonna have a chance to talk with these 3 artists a little bit after, but just to give you a sense of what we're about to experience, SPATIAL-ESK and stylo starr are gonna walk us through this very beautiful, amazing space that they've created, and then we're gonna have a chance to talk with our artists a little bit more in depth after. Mm-hmm. Take it away. SPATIAL-ESK, do you have access to the screen share function?
I think I just need to be allowed to share. Thank you.
Go ahead. That should let you go.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So again, big shout out again to just all the artists here, the new MMA site. First of all, can everyone see the screen?
We can all see it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Incredible. It's just an incredible kind of backdrop to this amazing collage of all the different kind of pieces all together. And I'm really looking forward to kind of just the chat and discussion with each of the individual kind of artists, because really the whole process was taking kind of the essence of each one and just making a space out of it, getting a real feel for that. And so if you guys are ready to enter hyperspace and get into it.
I've never been more ready.
Yeah.
So
we had a countdown. We were going live earlier. It's another countdown now. So here we go. The whole idea of it being kind of an open space and similar to some of the pieces that stylo produces, it's kind of got a cosmic feel to it. This is kind of, we're literally out in space. This is kind of a very open experience that just distills each artist's environment into just like its own experience itself. So this is again, like, it's created using kind of open source software and kind of layering all that code. But generally, it's always best on a bigger screen if you can. You can try on your phone, but it's not the same. So if you want that real immersive sense, so you can kind of click and drag to look around the space. You can kind of use the menu to kind of get to the different artist spaces, and then the Sankofa symbol, which you'll see will always bring you back to the main central space. So it's all linked up with social media and everything for all the artists. So this is the main space kind of in between. The colors, stylo picked out carefully, with the hex colors, just for each individual artist space. We have MK space in red. You got kind of yours truly, a SPATIAL-ESK space there. The black house kind of taking that color there. Islam Tim. We've got Sonia Mwambu's space as well. And then coming up on the right over here, we have Kofi's space. Kind of heading around, we got Stylo's got her own kind of curator statement in her own space here. Young Yemi, shout out, he's here in the panel today. Got Faiza and Anna as well, Anna Binta Diallo space too. And then MK's MK space again. So this idea of this sort of floor plan, as you can see on the ground, it's just how each artist space is coming together. It's a collage of different approaches, ways of working. So we wanted the space to feel like a collage itself. That's why we kind of have these unique kind of forms all kind of coming together in this way. So yeah. So we can go into any of the spaces. This is kind of what do you want to start with first?
We should start with the start here. We should start in the Starr Lounge.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So I said earlier, like, I'm gonna drive this thing, but like, if you want to shout out directions.
Yeah, for sure. I'm your co-pilot. I'm right here.
There we go. There you go. All right.
Let's do this.
There we go.
I feel like it should go like, Is it sharing? I'm not hearing the audio coming through. I want to make sure
Okay.
that they're getting the
There
audio
we go.
experience as
Let
well.
me, so one thing, the audio, you can find in the menu, you can hit play over here. Here we
So
go.
I don't think you're sharing your audio.
All right, let me see if I can.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, here we go.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Yes.
So in the background, we have Kofi's ethereal soundtrack that merges all the spaces. You'll hear more about that.
If you can maybe toggle it down just a bit so we can hear you over it. That perfect.
There we go.
There we
Amazing.
go.
Cool,
I'm a
cool.
good co-pilot.
Exactly. Yeah, and it just kind of, in terms of just the colors and the main space, it's really just creating this outer space experience. With the process we went through was just kind of taking those kind of bold colors, putting it out in space, and really just focusing on each of the pieces. Kind of having the kind of the key parts of text that you'll see on the web page, but also you can kind of read here within the space as if you were in a gallery. You know, that's the kind of feel that we wanted to get. And it just kind of creates these opportunities, these icons that are kind of floating. We don't need gravity anymore, so you know, you can always get back to the courtyard when you see the Sankofa symbol, or the web page, you can check them, or you want to follow them on Insta, you can just click on the link here, you know, for any of the artists, you know. You can hear the track kind of changing, so each of the spaces has been translated into sound, as Kofi's done an incredible job with that as we mix those together.
Do you potentially have something else playing in the background?
I'm
hearing another track coming through.
Let me see if I can.
And then also, while you're figuring that out, there's also an option for you to go completely full screen, so it can completely take over your desktop, so you're fully immersed in the space. The squares where you're seeing events, that's where the playback of these events will be hosted. We're hoping to have the playback up here, so for anyone who does miss the event this evening on the live, they can catch it on the replay in the Star Lounge.
Yeah, let's try and get that sound off. There we go. All right. So can you hear the, let me put this sound back on here.
Yes.
There we go.
There we go.
Amazing, cool. So where we can head back to the courtyard here to take you back into the central space. And so let's go like a pop, I guess. Let's go into kind of young Yemi space over here. Cool. Here we go, and I'm just gonna put this to full screen. You see this full screen?
Yes.
Amazing, amazing. I love these pieces. I thought it would just be amazing to just give them this sense of just being kind of these pieces that are not restricted by gravity. And so you have these panels in space, as you kind of see kind of each of them in the contrast with the white, which is something that we worked with quite a lot for each of the pieces. And again, you just these planes on the panels. There's so much kind of form within the work that it's just, all for the space, you could just restrict to these floating panels. Again, that are just free of gravity, and just kind of celebrate the way these are composed, whether it was squares or longer, you know. And kind of again with the kind of the way the sound works, and that just giving us an outer space kind of feel, just really just embracing kind of each of the pieces in that way.
Right, so as you're hearing the soundtrack and we're moving through these different movements of sound, so what's been done is I took the overall, or I guess the mean color from each collection of artists' works, and I picked a color, a hexadecimal value. Just used my color picker tool on my computer, found something that kind of gave me the same intuitive mood or feeling of the space. We applied that color to the space, and then Kofi took that actual hexadecimal code information encoded that into a soundscape, and that's what you're hearing. So the actual SoundCloud, the little album is available. There's a link at the very bottom of the website. You can go through and see what each space legitimately sounds like. So, and that kind of just came together on its own. The color, I didn't want anything that didn't feel relevant to the show, and I felt the best approach, because we could use any approach in this case, not having physical limitations of paint or vinyl or budget, really. It was to kind of give them their own color. And so that's kind of where that came out of. And then the soundtrack was just chef's kiss. Perfect.
I love the way they come together, and just just the rhythm of it, because it's like there's a structure to the sound that Kofi loves to work with, and you'll hear more about that, and the way that was the structure of the space. Synchronicity.
Let's go through a couple of the other spaces to make sure everyone has an idea of what each one of them looks like, and kind of how they're able to navigate the space. Faiza joined us last week.
So here we are in Faiza's space. It's kind of, again, kind of the bright kind of yellow, the kind of picking out different pieces from the way that works. And this is kind of quite like you'll be able to see when you look up, this is quite like a kind of a curved space to try and just kind of pick up some of those edges in some of the pieces, like, you know, whether it's the cans on the shelf or the hands, it's just trying to make it tactile. And it's just amazing to have some pieces just kind of floating again, just using the space to frame two pieces as well.
It gives me the feeling of, I actually just found it a couple days ago. I'm sorry, everyone, I keep bringing up all this nostalgia stuff, but I've been going through a lot of stuff in my apartment and I've been coming across it. But I came across Jazz Jackrabbit, the floppy disk of the video game, and it gives me this real, like, early 90s first person adventure game. And like, even with the sounds, it just, there's a certain digital fuzziness to it that I really appreciate. And yeah, I just wanted to actually name that, because I really love how this came together.
Just to jump in,
a retro vibe.
Oh yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right, I don't want to interrupt, but we have two audience questions, and I usually like to hold these to the end, but these are pretty relevant. One is a quick question. Can you remind everyone who composed the music?
Yes, that would be Kofi Oduro, which I don't know if he's back. Yes, give us a wave. Give us a wave, Kofi.
And then question. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Complete that.
I just wanted to add on, like, if you were able to join us a couple weeks ago, Kofi had an event with us where he kind of walked us through some of the ways that he creates these soundscapes and other things. We will be having the replay of that posted up in this very space very shortly, so you'll be able to take a look at that if you did miss that. But go ahead. Sorry.
All right, shall we get into Kofi's space?
Does this allow for zooming in to get closer and looking at the pieces?
Yes, good question. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go into Kofi's space so you can give us an example.
There we go. So with your mouse, you can kind of scroll forward and scroll back to kind of zoom kind of in and out on the piece. But then what we've done is we've added a feature where you can actually click on the eye, and that'll take you to kind of the web page where you can scroll statically or have a look at the publication as well, which is absolutely incredible, to kind of give you the full range of viewing the piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know this space it's not, you know, for everybody. It could be disorienting, just the moving around and the panning and the different angles. So we want to make sure that you're actually seeing the work fully and taking it in as well. We want the experience to be experienced, but we want the work to actually be taken in as well. So we do have a separate page where you can take that in of a more static environment.
Yeah. But this is just really kind of echoing what Stylo was saying about that kind of 90s vibe, and it's just really it's when like technology was all exciting. You had these video games coming out, and, you know, the Matrix was in the cinema. It was like, you know, all these, it's just kind of getting that vibe back. And it's with the Afrofuturist theme, and like, you know, we have some of Kofi's poetry up here, and some of these pieces here. It's kind of, it kind of fits with that kind of theme, really.
And the patterns that you're seeing were actually also coded and created by Kofi. So Kofi's not just a sound wizard, he's optics and visuals and basically anything you can imagine. Yeah, let's go through another space. That video, or that link, I should say, with the 3 windows, if you can pan over to the left again.
There we go.
Yeah, that will take you to the replay of Kofi's event, which I'm not sure if we have it loaded, but we are working on that. So there are a couple Easter eggs that will be placed after tonight. So feel free to click around, see what you can find, and keep coming back, and you'll see more stuff as we go.
Here we go. I'll roll my mouse back to zoom out a little bit. We've got Sonia Mwambi's space over here. So if you're at the last event, you'd have seen like she works with kind of cut and paste, like with film and the texture of that. So we went through a couple of iterations for this space, you know, but we wanted it to feel like this intimate screening experience, and kind of under, you know, it's kind of indoors, outdoors, you know, under the stars, all this kind of feel to it. But yeah, we have the 2 pieces, you know, just kind of here in this one seat, just really inviting you to kind of really engage with these two pieces of film.
And so the playback is not in the space, so you'll see there's some markers over both screens, and that will take you to the webpage where they are hosted, and you can watch them from there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna be that person who keeps us on time. I think we have time for one more room, and then I've got some questions for you both. I think Anna Binta's room would be great to check out, because I know we're gonna speak with her in a little bit. But I would love to be able to pose some questions to you so we can learn a little bit more about your process in making this.
Cool. Yeah, no, I just had so much fun in all these spaces. I could could spend all day, but like this was definitely one of my favorites kind of design, in terms of just how the pieces are hung with these kind of strips of white, like as if they're just kind of draped, which kind of really just works nicely with being out in space. There's a real kind of contrast between the light and the dark as well. And some of the pieces do have like, you know, a bit of like sun and some stars in them, so it's almost like they kind of speak into the space too.
Yeah, I imagine they're like very tall, billowing tapestries or sealing the floor.
Right. I'm so glad that I had the chance to look at this before today. I mean, or even like this moment, because even now I'm very much lost for words. I think we're over time because I just forgot I was working for a little bit, and I'm just so immersed in this space. And I didn't know that I needed something like this, because I'm one of those people who like didn't do well with the transition to coming online, and I was like, if it's not in person, it's not going to work. You can't replicate these kind of experiences. And I was very much like a naysayer and a late adopter to like this whole online space. But this makes me not only feel like I'm in a gallery space, but it makes me feel like I'm in a different gallery space. Like I actually am experiencing something I didn't even know I needed. And it's just such a, I mean, I'm just so grateful for, especially looking, I love looking up. Like I can't get enough of just like the
It's one of
view.
my favorite parts.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
I don't remember what it was before. I think it was just kind of like a matte gray, or just kind of like a muted space before. And I was like, there's something missing here. You know, we're talking about the future. We're talking about Afrofuturism. My name is stylo, starr. Like I'm of the cosmos. We all are, but I'm of the cosmos. And I'm like, we need stars. I don't know how we're gonna do it. And I feel like that's all I needed to say. And Spatial-ESK was like, say less. Got it. And the next time I saw the space, there should be some screen grabs of me somewhere with like just my jaw unhinged and on the ground, because like I love every time we would go through here, he just panned through the space, and I'm just like, you have a language that you can read that made this on the back end. Like, it's such a fluency that I still kind of grapple with. And yeah, I'm super grateful for this magic, this alchemy, for real.
There's a human element and almost like a non-human element in here as well. So I'm cautious when you, not cautious, I'm curious when you both were creating this space, what were the human elements that you were looking to replicate, you know, in your traditional gallery experience, but also just like other human elements that you wanted to incorporate in this digital space? And what were some like non-human elements? What were some things that were like really cosmic in that space, you know, besides the stars that you wanted to, you know, develop as an experience for the viewer?
Well, I definitely wanted, as far as the non-natural, or like as the unnatural characteristics of the gallery, I wanted it to feel like you don't necessarily have your feet planted anywhere, but you're not 100% thrown off kilter, or, you know, you can't find, quote unquote, your footing or your balance, your equilibrium even, I guess you could say. So I wanted not feel that pressure to shuffle past piece to piece that you feel when you're in the physical gallery space, or like, do I have enough space for the next person who's also trying to take in this piece, or have I been looking at this piece for too long, am I too close? All of that's kind of done away. I think what we really wanted to maintain were the really nice quirks about being in gallery spaces and in installations. Like, for instance, in Sonia's space, you know, we did have an entire theater. Like, we had like a 200 seated theater in that space initially. And I loved it, but I was also like, you know, when I go into a gallery and there's a video component and there is like some kind of like a black box theater, it's intimate. There's like maybe a bench, there's maybe 3 or 4 seats. At the most I've ever seen maybe like an 8-seater space. So let's make it more intimate. Like, I loved things like that. I loved having floor symbols. The floor map is something that, you know, you go to a museum, typically the bigger museums or galleries, you get the program, it has the floor plan on it, shows you where everyone is. And it's kind of like that exciting kind of like, ooh, here's my program, like, let's choose our own adventure. Which is really cute because the floor plan does have a star, not only for my name, but kind of like a, you are here, start here. And so a lot of the quirky visual helpful cues of the gallery experience is kind of what we were trying to maintain. But we wanted to do away with white walls. We wanted to do away with 4 walls. So every space is I guess, in traditional terms, not traditional. They're every which way, they're arbitrary, I guess. And then when you go in, there's no ceiling, arguably there's no floor. You're just kind of floating, you're present, you're in the space. So we really want to like drive up the volume on the presence of being in the gallery space and dialing down all the other distractions, I guess you could say.
And it reminds me, on like our little practice session, we were having a conversation, Pamela and I, about like the museum rebrand, and I was asking about like the parentheses and like what does that mean, and you were discussing about how you're rethinking about what is a museum, you know. And I think this exhibition speaks so well to that like reimagining and rethinking of what is this space that's historically incredibly institutional, hierarchical, colonial, you know, and rethinking what that is and presenting works of the Afrofuture. So I totally see that that thinking inside of this exhibition, whether it was intentional or not, it's very evident.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was one of our major questions because we were now able to tackle that question. Right. It's a little harder with the physical space because you are met with limitations from the university, from just procedures, et cetera, et cetera. With this space, it's literally our world. We're not even on Earth. we've blasted off. We're just, you know, a couple clicks away. We're floating in our own little space, our own little domain. And there are no rules. It's just, you know, proper representation of Black creation and Black joy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Every time that you scroll up SPATIAL-ESK, like I literally like I'm like almost, what's the word? Like when you're afraid of heights, I'm like, you're fine.
It's a
This
really nice
bridge in
container.
Island
Yeah.
space where it's like over the stars. So you gotta, if you're afraid of heights, then you might decide whether you want to look down when you're on this bridge.
Oh God.
Pretend it's a carpet. Just pretend it's like a really polka dotty carpet, and you'll be okay.
I have one last question before we open it up to the other three amazing artists who are with us. But I always think, for me, when I look at something so elaborate and intricate as this, I think, what were the challenges? And I don't, mean to kind of ask like, what was the hardest part and what was so stressful? But I'm just curious, to get to a space like this, were there challenges that you ran into and how did you overcome those challenges? Because the space is incredible, but I don't want to underestimate or not acknowledge the amount of work that went into arriving here.
Yeah. It's there was a lot of like so I'm like a member on GitHub, which is like where loads of like coders. Kofi's got an account there too, and like you just message boards like, how on earth do you do this? Like a lot of the things, the features you see here, like I kind of sculpture the spaces, but making it like a user experience, that has its own like layer of like, okay, how do you integrate sound within this? And there's a lot of these things are just to make it as easy an experience as possible, given the kind of the coding. So that's where a lot of it came in, making it a user experience. I don't know if Stilo has anything to add to that in terms of the experience of, it was almost like there's too much choice at one point because you could just make anything. So it's like.
Yeah, it was very simple and
Yeah.
very difficult at the same time because, you know, I have a very pedestrian experience with coding. I think that my last experience, and I mentioned this before, and in passing, my last experience with coding was using Dreamweaver like a decade ago. I don't even know if they use that anymore. So like I don't have a proper lens into how this actually works. So I have an idea of how I would like the space to look, how I would like to experience and go through and travel the space. But I don't know the translation. So it was kind of like we were speaking in two different languages and trying to find like that lexicon where we both were like, oh, okay, yes, we're on this page, got it. And it was a really fun experience. It wasn't, you know, you think that it's just like pulling hair out, and SPATIAL-ESK, you know, correct me if, you know, on your end after we close Zoom chats and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. But you know, there was never any of that energy. It was just like very playful, very experimental, like let's see, like I don't know if we can do that, let's see if we can figure it out on the back end. And I really appreciated that energy in this type of project because this whole project is literally built on the spirit of experimentation and just kind of seeing what we can do with what we've got. And that's been an ethos of mine for a very long time. Like, what can you do with where you are with what you've got? And is this, correct me, SPATIAL-ESK, is this the software that was really only used for like condo mock-ups and like?
Yeah, it was like, yeah, that's the whole collage aspect. So generally this type of software, you'd see it for like, yeah, like if you want to look around an apartment or you want to look around like, you know, Google Street View, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it was a bit of collage and using it for like art application. Like, let's do something with this that it wasn't maybe perceived that this is going to be how it's used, but let's kind of use our, and working with curators on this has definitely brought about that unconventional experience and using it in a different way. So I've enjoyed that challenge, that kind of that back and forth. You know, it made something I think really unique, something I'm actually really proud of. just how the artist's work is then represented as well. So
Yeah.
Amazing. Before we open up the conversation, I want to ask, how long is this? It feels weird to say how long is this up, but how long will the exhibition be viewable for, this online space? Ideally forever, but I know that's not the case.
We're hoping, and Pamela, jump in because I have a number of dates floating in my head, but I want to say July, August before it kind of goes into the background. And then we're looking at different ways of how we can have this archived and available beyond the exhibit.
Yeah, we're looking at 3 months at least, but because it's the first online exhibition that we've done, we're looking to find a way that we can archive it, because I want to keep it forever.
Forever and ever and ever. I want like high-res screen grabs that I can like print out and like frame.
Oh,
I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of the space, and I'm so grateful for everyone's contribution, big or small, on making this happen, including everyone attending tonight. I just, again, needed to name that before we open it up to the panel.
definitely. So I think what we'll do is we'll keep the screen share going while we do the panel, because I think it'd be great to reference the work as we talk about it with the artists. And it also is just like the most beautiful thing to see. So I kind of want to have it up. I think people will enjoy having it up as well. But I want to reintroduce 3 of the artists who are also part of this exhibition. There's 8 in total, including SPATIAL-ESK. But I want to be able to talk about the individual practices of these artists. We met the first 4 during the first launch with Pitch Magazine. And those artists were working more so in analog, traditional cut and paste collage. And so these artists are working in more digital and digitally conceptual collage as well. So I'm going to say your name, I'm going to read your lovely bios, and then I'm going to open it up for you to kind of just say hello and let us know where you're calling in from, how you feeling, before we kind of get into the convo. And a quick time check, we're just jumping on 7 p.m., so I think we're good for time. Anna Binta, I'm going to start with you. Anna Binta Diallo's artwork investigates memory and nostalgia, creating unexpected narratives through explorations of identity. She was born in Dakar, Senegal, 1983, and raised in Bain-Pointe-Fas, Winnipeg, I hope I got that right, on the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. She completed her BFA at the University of Manitoba's School of Fine Arts in 2006 and received an MFA from the Transart Institute in Berlin in 2013. Her work has been shown nationally, including exhibitions in Brandon, Winnipeg, Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Central, and internationally in Finland, Taiwan, and Germany. Just like snaps, you are Mrs. Worldwide. Anna Binta Diallo has been the recipient of multiple grants and honors, notably from the Canada Council of the Arts, the Conseil des Arts et des Lettres du Québec, and Francfond. In 2019, Diallo's work was selected as a shortlisted finalist for the Salt Spring National Art Prize. She is currently based in Montreal, or Ottawa-Tiake, on the traditional territory of the Kanyen-Kehaka. And I hope I said that right, but if I didn't, please correct me. And you can find Anna Binta on Instagram at Anna Binta Diallo. And yeah, please introduce yourself again. I think your bio is just lovely, but it's always nice to hear about artists, directly from them, how you're feeling, and where you're calling in from.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, nice to speak to everyone tonight and be here and see this amazing gallery put together. I'm in Ottawa-Tiake, or Montreal, traditional territory of the Kanyen-Kehaka. Thankful for having lived here for 15 years on this land. And just, I'm feeling great. I mean, I think just having the opportunity to kind of walk through it, walk through the gallery, the virtual gallery with all of you is really exciting, and just nice to see the work kind of in a new context, in this kind of context. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. Second, we have Kofi Oduro. Kofi is a creative engineer, thinker, poet, and performer living in Montreal, Quebec. His artistic practice is an observation of the world around us that he puts into artworks for others to relate to or disagree with. Through videography, poetry, and creative coding, Oduro highlights the realms of human performance and the human mind in different scenarios. These situations can be described as social, internal, or even biological, which he adds music and visuals to highlight the different subtleties and feelings that make us human. With a dose of technology, there is an endless range of progress in these human creative endeavors. His work has been presented nationally and internationally in various festivals and live events, including the iMyth Media Arts Festival, the Chale Wodes Festival, the Stoker Art Festival, the Nocturne Halifax, as well as the Accra Film Festival in Ghana and the Photophobia Contemporary Moving Images Festival in Hamilton. And you can find Kofi online, Instagram, particularly at @illustpreacher, which I think is just the greatest Instagram name account. And thank you so much for, the soundscapes that we've been listening to as SPATIAL-ESK has been taking us through this exhibition is just like so beautiful and grounding at the same time, and kind of gives us like an augmented feel in the space. So we appreciate that, but say hello to those watching and introduce yourself for us.
Hi everybody, my name is Kofi. I also go by @illustpreacher, and I am also based out of Montreal, Quebec.
Nice. Thanks for joining us. And then last but most certainly not least, we have young Yemi. Young Yemi is a Toronto-based artist whose multidisciplinary practice aims to examine the intersectionality of Black identity. He brings together varying elements to create his Afrofuturist portraits, inspired by a range of source material that embodies the history and future of the culture. Through pre-colonial, colonial, present-day, and future timelines, which are explored across religions, regions, and richness of Black experience against an imposed societal homogeny, often seen through traditional Westernized narratives. You can find Young Yemi on Instagram at young.yemi, and I think his work certainly speaks for itself. It's on screen. I know you had a really busy day ahead of you today, so thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us as well.
Honestly, it's an honor to be here. Thank you guys so much for including me in this. This is, it's a really special experience, and just blown away by the presentation. I was so hyped this afternoon when I got the link and I got a chance to check it out and see everybody's work. It's just so incredible. And yes, I guess I'm a self-taught artist. My background is in commercial photography, but a couple of years ago, I decided to, focus more on Afrofuturism and Pan-Africanism, and that's when I started creating this body of work. Yeah, it's just it's been a really amazing sort of path. It's it's incredible to be included in this group here and get to connect with all of you. So and yeah, I'm in my studio in Kensington Market right now. So
right. And then of course SPATIAL-ESK, one of our exhibiting artists, and then stylo, starr, the curator and the alchemist behind this all. So I'm really excited to dive into the exhibition and dive into the work as SPATIAL-ESK continues to take us through the space. But I want to open up with a question just for everyone, but I'll pose it to you first, Anna Binta. How are you introduced to collage as a compositional process? Is your process strictly digital?
So I think for me, I've always been drawn to collage since I was a kid, like a young child at school. I remember cutting up magazines. So for me, even though I do work in digital, the process always is analog first. Like I like to go through the process of gathering, collecting, like cutting things up. Like the finished product might look digital, but there's a whole process that is not seen that is really about like the tactile and going through the pages and dusting off old books. And then I kind of bring it to a different level after. So I think for me, it's a mixture of both. And collage has always been part of my practice in the sense that if I was interested in painting, I would always like start a collage first and paint collage. If I'm working on a video, I've worked in video as well. And I also kind of do the like cut and paste, adding things on. So I think for me, collage is like a language that can be applied in different ways. So yeah.
Right. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that it starts off as analog and then transitions into digital, and I'm curious to see if that's the experience of others as well. What percentage would you say of your practice is is it a hybrid? We're looking at 50-50, or does it, transition into digital and take up more artistic space that way? Or I'm just curious what the split is for you between working in traditional cut and paste and digital as well.
Well, I think well, for this series specifically, like it started off as like I said, like cutting things up, and then it becomes digital, and then recently it becomes analog again, in the sense that I start collaging space, and this is actually the first time where it's been exhibited in a digital space. So more recently, I've been printing them out and actually like collaging the walls. So in a way, it's another process of collaging analog in a way, using like I print them on fabric sometimes, or sometimes I mount them on aluminum or wood, so they kind of take up physical space again. So it's kind of interesting now to see that they are digital, but they weren't intended to be digital, to remain in the digital realm. I think they were intended to inhabit an actual space, but because they are digital images, it's fitting that they also explore the digital space as well.
Right. I think the grander nature of how large they are in this digital space lends itself to, I think, like I'm imagining what it would look like to see your work in life, real life, I should say, 3D. And I think being able to see it take up so much of the digital space here, I think really lends itself to what it might have looked like in person. Yemi, I want to pose this question to you as well. How are you introduced to collage as a compositional process in your practice?
It's really interesting. I had this conversation with stylo during one of our studio visits, and I'm not exactly sure what the starting point was for me. I know that when I was in high school and my early 20s, like I did a lot of youth work and summer camps and stuff like that. So I think the actual practice of collage probably maybe came from program planning for kids and for youth, because it's just such a just giving them a box of magazines and say go nuts. It's like such a easy way to to spend an hour or so. But in general, I've always been drawn to collage. I think of it as sort of like I guess it's an integral concept to Afrofuturism in general. I think so much of Afrofuturism is about remixing and repurposing. So it makes sense as an Afrofuturist to sort of approach art from that perspective, and also also to tie into hip hop culture. I draw a lot of connections between hip hop culture, and the way that hip hop music is produced, to collaging. The whole concept of sampling, if in a sort of conceptual sense is essentially collage. So hip hop has had a really influential played a really influential role in my life as well. So I think those are sort of like the threads that I'm sort of pulling on and trying to draw together in my work.
Right. I think it's interesting you bring up hip hop culture, and I always big up the essay. I did it in the first session, but if you have a chance to read the curatorial essay that stylo has written in Pitch magazine, stylo does reference, remix culture and the ways that hip hop has informed, not only the practice of collage, but also this exhibition as well. So I think it's great that you also highlight how hip hop culture does manifest in your work by just the very nature of remixing, sampling, chopping and screwing music, and how that influences work as well. So I love that there's little ties between you and curatorially stylo's mastermind of alchemy when it comes to curating this show. I'd love to pose the same question to you, Kofi, and I'll get to posing this to you, SPATIAL-ESK, as well. And I also want to hear your response, stylo, because I know that you are a collage artist as well. But how were you introduced to collage as a compositional process, Kofi?
I just like mashing things together. That's the truth. I'm one of those people that if I can mash as much things together and then make them coherent, I've done my job. So yeah, that what got me into it. And then I realized that, oh, I could have fun just playing around with different stuff. And then like during like right before like the pandemic, I'm like, hey, no one says you can't remix your own work. So then I'm like, so then I got into the practice of like collaging or remixing my own work constantly. So yeah.
That's an interesting point, because I think we just spoke about this in the last session, where I just hear a lot of artists talking about it as well, of this idea that your work is never really done. And even if it is done, like there's so many lifelines or lifetimes that your life, that your work can take on. So that idea of like remixing and continuing to always remix and chop and screw your own work and creating new work from that, I think is a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
And Spatial-ESK, I mean, you've just been quietly taking us through the exhibition in this space.
I've just been enjoying the drive, you know, just taking in the sights.
We love it. If you need the question again, but if you don't, please go ahead and let us know how, you know, you were introduced to collage as a process.
Yeah, so for me, it's like taking, I'll use kind of Gaslight Space as an example. So like in like the built spaces around us, I mean, this kind of space, for those who want to like just change the world and the environment around them. So I'm inspired by a lot of street artists who do that through wheat paste, through stickers, through the spray can, different mediums to try and add a layer onto the city. So I like to kind of pick cues. So like the column is like, it's got its own associations with a certain type of grandeur, but I want to bring some of that, kind of remix some of those cues, the visual things that you see, to kind of elevate pieces, to try and elevate, which is kind of what my work's all about. Just dignity, elevation, giving all kinds of art and voices kind of a good platform. So that's how I kind of remix spatially. Yeah.
Right. I think you, I'm not sure if we have been to your room. But I think we have, but I think, I don't know if we like highlighted it as this is the room for you, but not only are you kind of like the mastermind along with stylo of this entire space, but you also have your own room here as well.
Yeah. This is the piece kind of came about when Trump was still in power, and one of his mandates was to make all government buildings look like the White House. And so I was kind of wondering what's the thought behind that. So like basically loads of activists were kind of saying, what is the kind of what's this neoclassical, what does it try to speak of, and what is it saying about power? So the idea of the Black House was to kind of like just deconstruct this image, and to try and reinvent it and say, okay, if it's not kind of a racialized comment, then let's fill this place with kind of like just imagery of, you know, positive imagery of, you know, African Americans and like those of African heritage, and let's kind of reinvent this to kind of to celebrate. So it's a little, it comes with my way of working, which is juxtaposition, but using that to kind of actually create new opportunities, and that's how it's kind of remixed with this example with the Black House.
Remix is just the word that keeps coming up in this conversation. So I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I'm really feeling it. And stylo, I don't know, I'm sure folks know, but if they don't, you also are a collage artist. So talk to us a little bit about how collage, you know, manifests as a compositional process for you.
I feel like we need like a sound bite of like Diddy just yelling remix, because like that's just the essence of the show. Like for me, what was the actual question again? Like, how do I access collage?
Yeah, how do you, or how are you introduced, I should say, to collage as a compositional process in your work?
It's very, very similarly to Anna. You know, it was always kind of a school thing that I really loved. Like whenever there was the cut and paste table or section, you'd find me over there. I found it a really nice way to play around with composition without committing to the composition. Like you can kind of play around with it before you commit any glue to it or like layer it down. And I found my strength there. I found a lot of strength in building compositions through collage. And I always liken the way collage comes together for me, like the typical scene in a movie where like a hacker's trying to break into like a safe and they're trying to like break the combo and they're like click, 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 click. And then they hear the click that lets them in. They're like, I'm in. That's what I experience when I go through my layers and I figure out how things are going to kind of coalesce and come together. So it's definitely a language. I don't always know what message I'm expressing when they come together. This piece in particular was just kind of a one-off night. I was hosting a collage gathering downtown here in Hamilton, Assemblage, big up Suba. And that kind of just came out of just the spirit of collaboration, of people gathering in the space to create. Yeah, that's kind of how I access it. It's just, it's a language for me.
I love the metaphor of like, you know, trying to crack a safe in terms of
it's
like
the closest I can get. Like, it's literally every time you hear the click and you're like, I'm in. Like, yeah. I will work with layers and move them around before I use any glue sticks, any tape, anything. And as soon as I know how it's supposed to look, because I kind of already know, once that clicks in my brain, then it's go time. Right. I wish I could explain it better than that, but
it's amazing.
Watch Hackers or something. Like, if you crack into the mainframe, that's what it feels like when you get a collage, right?
I mean, this exhibition looks like hacking into the mainframe, so I think that's a
pretty
great
much, yeah.
Yemi, I wanted to quickly ask you, or not quickly, it'd be great if we could spend some time on this question, but the figures in your work each seem to like adorn a very unique armor. Can you talk to us about this aesthetic?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it kind of has a few different purposes. Like one again, it's like some of the chains and some of the stuff like that is a direct tie to hip hop culture. It's like a very it's a very instant and obvious way to convey you know, messages. Like a lot of the pendants have, you know, significance or meaning, like if you're getting close and look at the details. In another sense, it, you know, it's also sort of like a metaphor for like these cultural artifacts that I think are kind of they're kind of like our jewels, like our you know, our cultural symbols and our histories, and you know, all these pieces. Like I try to sort of translate them into adornments that can be worn, but it's kind of like in a metaphorical sense. It's like these are like the treasures that I feel like we need to sort of hold on to and highlight in our own lives, in our own, you know, in our daily practices. And then you know, in a more superficial sense, like I'm just like I'm a visual junkie, and like I OD on like details. Like I love details. I love patterns. I love repetition. I love symmetry. I love all those little textures and pieces of things. So that's, you know, from a superficial sort of lens, like that's what I spend a lot of time in, just in terms of creating the aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. SPATIAL-ESK, I'm so grateful that you're zooming in, because for those who, I know this is an online exhibition, but if you've had the opportunity or the luxury to see young Yemi's work in person and you've been able to like walk up close to it, it is so incredibly intricate and detailed. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that as well, because I mean, these items, they dual purpose, they function as like an armor, but also like very beautiful adornment. But everything from the braids to, I mean, the chinks and the chains, it's truly just like magnificent. So it makes me happy to hear that this is a part that you like to fixate on, because I think one can truly get lost in the very specific and intricate details in your work. I mean, even the hair, I'm just like, how do I get my hair to look like that? It is so intricate and perfect. So yeah, it's a great detail that I'm glad you highlighted. I want to ask you, Anna, as well. Can you speak more about your process in creating personal mythologies? And I'm excited for this question because it was written by Stylo, and so when I read it, I was like, tell me more. I really want to know about this. So yeah, what is this process in creating these personal mythologies?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because I had to think about it myself. Like, is that what I'm doing, creating personal mythologies, or am I? I think for me, well, for this body of work specifically, I was really interested in the idea of like folklore and mythology and stories related to the self, but also related to like my own cultures, but also other people's cultures, and like so it's kind of this tension between like the collective and the self. And I think I was really interested in collecting. So as much as I'm collecting images, like from books and things, I'm also collecting stories. And I think I'm looking at history, trying to isolate maybe moments from stories or from myths or legends or sometimes even songs. I'm trying to like represent them in an image. And for this series, like I really wanted to create characters that would embody a story. And you know, for the viewer, maybe they're not so sure what that story is, but I myself know exactly like why I put those images together and what stories they represent. But my intent is mostly to kind of open up, you know, I don't want to dictate what the story is. I hope that the viewer can kind of try and imagine what it could be about. And I think for me, that's kind of the fun of collage in a way, is that you can kind of, I don't want to use that word again, remix, but you can take stories that exist or myths or stories that you heard when you grow up, stories you tell yourself, stories you hear from other cultures, and then you can mash them up, and then like a new story emerges. And for me, I think that's where I was really, you know, as an artist, I'm interested in making an image, but I'm also learning myself as I'm going through the process of it. And sometimes the stories would like come together. I think Stylo, you mentioned like the click moment. Sometimes you don't really know, you know, I have like a list of stories that I'm like looking at, that I'm researching, but I'm not sure how the character will come together. And then all of a sudden it comes together in a way. And then, so I think for me, it's like not necessarily about like defining something, but it's about like trying to explore it and see what happens. And then of course there's the, when you put them together, there's like a new story that emerges, whether you're looking at it separately or with in groups or with side by side others. A new personal mythology will come. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I approach it. And yeah, some of the characters are very much literally based on an actual sentence from a story or not. So there's like a lot of room to play there, I think. And for me, that's kind of another important factor, is like when you read a story, your imagination can kind of just go. And I think I like to I don't necessarily want to have a result. I kind of just see what happens after I like gather my images and collect and move things around until it like clicks, I guess. Yeah.
I love that. It's also there's this intricate or like delicate balance between, you know, developing something and wanting to convey it to your audience, but also not being like overly prescriptive and like feeding the story to them and allowing the audience to pick up on whatever story kind of comes to them. So as much as like I want to ask them, like, so tell us what the story is. I know what I think the story is, and I think it's up for everyone to interpret the narratives that are within your work. So I think, and I think you do such a great job of doing that as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Kofi, I wanted to, you know, pose a question to you about the music and the process that you went into. And I know folks might have been lucky to catch you 2 weeks ago live coding, which was like truly a treat. But if they didn't, can you, you know, for the digital exhibition, you scored the experience using this hexadecimal color value for each room. Can you walk us through that process a little bit? And dare I say, for the folks who, I mean, I feel like hexadecimal, if you're born in the 90s and, you know, you might know what that means. But for folks who don't, you know, talk to us about this process of what even a hexadecimal number is. And
I actually went deeper in, and then I went like deeper. So there's like what you hear, there's like a remixed version, like that's extended version. I could drop the link later. So what happened is I was talking to Spatial, and then I don't know why, I opened my mouth. I'm like, you know what would be cool? Let's put music to sound. And then I'm like, to make it even nicer, I will use any color value from that as my only parameters.
Challenge accepted.
No, but then I realized it's hard. It's easier said than done. So I'm like, okay, hexadecimal cannot go in. So if you go, like, there's a website called like colorhexa.com, and I took any value of the numbers, and then I was doing like mental math. So let's say like I wanted something that was 20 and 20 didn't show up in the number, but the number had like 19.7. I'll do like, okay, 19.7 times 1.72 minus 2, my point, like, because I realized that the original way was not going to go well. So I used the own numbers to try to remix. And the only number that I sort of cheated was the color black, because it's only ones and zeros. So, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 can be anything. So that one, I'm like, okay, I can like play around a bit. But all the other colors, I strictly just use numbers that existed in their profile. So like letting the colors talk.
I want to jump in just to kind of give people a little more context. So the hexadecimal color is the way the monitor or the way the computer will read the color. You can read it in RBG, you can read it in CMYK, there's lab, and then there's also hexadecimal. So it's literally, it's a 6-character code. I think it's like 2 letters, 2 numbers, 2 letters. It's a combination of letters and numbers, but when you put them in a specific color reader, you'll get a color.
Yeah.
So he's using that and then blowing it
apart.
Well,
but then, blowing apart. But then I'm also using like RGB, CMYK, because I realized that if I didn't use those numbers as well, it's not, I had to cheat. Like, it's a cheat, because at first I'm like, hexadecimal will not make anything concrete. And then,
so that was one of the challenges then.
Yeah, because I realized that it was easier said than done. And so I was like, okay, I have to like find a way. And then I'm like, oh, there's multiple color values. So I took like any color value, and then I was just like making them work somehow. And then like, so I gave this like 10-minute mix. And then I'm like, you know what? I should let the colors breathe out. So there's like another mix where like every color gets to talk for 2 minutes. Because I call it like a self-color thing, yeah.
I love how you said every color gets to talk for 2 minutes. That is poetry, and I think that has just created another exhibition. I'm not sure what it'll be, but
it adds another layer. It adds another layer of that call and response of like, what if the color had a sound, what would it sound like?
So that's what the thing. But it was also motivated by like everyone else work, because I did glance at everyone else work in the exhibition. I'm like, wow, collage, and let me collage a bit more. So,
Let me add a little more razzle dazzle.
Well, not razzle dazzle. I was just like motivated by like the peers and everyone else. Like, look at the artwork; it's great.
So again, I like to save Q&A for a little bit later, but I feel like you're on a great wave right now, and there's a great question that to me makes no sense, but Kofi, I think it'll make sense to you. Someone has asked, so the hexadecimal is translated into hertz and frequencies. The person who posed that question, maybe if you want to clarify, please do, but they have asked, or they're clarifying, if the hexadecimal is then translated into hertz for the sound and frequencies.
Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, I didn't go that far, but what I did is there was one color called DAB 08. So for that one, I used 808s, and then I found samples that had like DAB, but only for that one. But for everything else, I just really took any number I saw, because the numbers are hard. Like, I didn't realize how messy the numbers were. So that was like interesting, like coming up with something coherent.
Because in your demo a couple weeks ago, like, it could be when you were creating those languages to create different visuals and sounds, like it could literally be one keystroke that turns the screen from like blue to orange, or so I definitely did not take that into consideration, because there's just so much magic that I've been able to kind of witness in seeing and hearing the click of clatter on the keyboard, seeing the code pop up, and then seeing the results. I was like, okay, let me throw some codes and some numbers at you and see what happens. I didn't even really expect that this was going to be the direction of the music and of the soundscape. I didn't know what directive they were going to take. I was like, what if we had a soundscape? and yeah, it just kind of blossomed that way. So I'm grateful that we had those codes and that information anyway, because it was just kind of one more thing that we can experiment with.
Right. I think when I listen to the SoundCloud, and I don't know about everyone else, but I feel like having this knowledge in my head is going to make me appreciate every single tone and like song, and it's a different, having this context, it really does change for me, at least, listening to this music, knowing not only the process that went into it, but like how intricately it's tied to the artwork itself. So I think that's really great information to have as I put in my headphones tonight and listen to
I was definitely going to say, get some headphones and just kind of listen to the subtleties, because they're there.
Right. And so as we kind of explore and pick apart, you know, the process of creating this virtual space, SPATIAL-ESK, I also want to ask you, how has working on this project shifted your approach to geopolitics and the subversion of image, Black power, and agency? This is another Steel Star question that I'm just like, the question alone, I'm just like, please tell me. I wonder what conversations prompted.
Sorry.
No,
they're heavy hidden.
That's a good question. So for me, one of the I've had discussions like this when producing other pieces in the past about the color black in pieces and trying to subvert the connotations of that. And actually, the cosmic use of stars in the space, it's got a different kind of gravity to it, and it's so kind of, you'll notice that kind of the color interweaving kind of all of the spaces is the night sky, and in many of the pieces you'll see that color in collage. This is such a powerful color, and I think, yeah, for me it's just kind of it's changed how I will kind of use that color in just cosmically, and in terms of like the space in which pieces are exhibited. Like now, I think it'll kind of like next time my pieces are kind of in a gallery, I'll definitely try and like suggest ways of just kind of just making it crazy with the walls and stuff. And it's it's a new dimension with the digital side, but I think there's definitely some applications in like real world too.
Right. It's beautiful. I mean, this space, I almost kind of like want to walk out. Like, I know we're on this like pathway, but I want to like walk up to things. Like, it's just so, the depth in the work is so deep. And I'm like, but I want to get closer. I want to walk. There you go. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to move it around.
Something pyramids here, kind of referencing kind of the architecture of power on the African continent, and just kind of trying to just to show like some of those intricate details. Like, I love how everyone's kind of talking about details, and whether it's like the way a pediment or a cornice or a column is used and what it means. And I think it's amazing hearing, even with sound, how it all comes together. So just knowing that like this music is influenced by the work itself is just like, it's a little too much for my like COVID mind to handle. It's truly just like, it's such a, I can't like round of applause and like kudos this work enough. Not only the curatorial work, but the frame of developing this exhibition, but just the work itself of the artists, both analog and digital, is just like, again, the pandemic mind is having a hard time processing all of this, and I'm just so grateful. Another really interesting question that I'm going to pose to the group in general is that a few of you have a history of community outreach and youth work, and I know, young Yemi, you mentioned this as well. How does this work inform the way that you approach collage and Afrofuturism in your work? Feel free to jump in.
I mean, I'll jump in. I think like my experience as a youth worker, I guess, and as a community worker, really just like informed. It helped me grow up a lot. Like it informed all aspects of my life, but I think specifically to my practice as an artist, it's about finding balance and sort of cohesion with like among differing viewpoints and differing interests, and all of those things. Like being a youth worker is like kind of like being a jack of all trades. There's like so many different things going on. There's so many dynamics within a group, and dealing with the administration and community interests and all of these different layers, and you got to kind of like find find some semblance of order in madness, and I think that all of the artists here could speak to doing that in their own practice, like as it pertains to collage. Like if you're sitting at a work table with a stack of magazines or old books, and you're looking at all these images, to be able to create this, like these stunning and impactful works out of like the seemingly like random array of source imagery is kind of, I think there's definitely a correlation there.
Agreed. And Anna, I know you wanted to get in quickly as well.
Well, I just want to say, like, recently I've been kind of invited to do these kind of workshops with young kids. I did one with Black Joy in Montreal a few weeks ago, and it was just really interesting to, like, it was through Zoom, obviously, because of the pandemic, but to give, like, young kids the opportunity to, sit down with some magazines, and, like, it doesn't take much to just get your creative juices flowing, I suppose. And then I was actually really surprised to see how many of them were so excited to, like, do it. And then also they had a lot of questions for artists, or for myself as well. Like, they had a lot of curiosity. And I think at the end of these workshops, there's always, the parents will say, "Oh, I'm so glad that, like, my child was able to talk to an artist." I think it gives them the opportunity to kind of see what they can do. Maybe it won't be collage, maybe it'll be music, maybe it'll be something else, but it's just, it's like a simple exercise can just open, creative pathways and give opportunities to young people who might not necessarily have the chance. So I'm always like game for these events, or these, I guess, workshops that come my way. So I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, it's great. And you also mentioned at the top of the event how much, like, for you, it started off as like cut and paste and collage in school. I think you started off quite young in school as well, just like cutting up magazines. I think we've all done that as an exercise in school: collage, paper mache, and here you are now presenting, work in a collage-based exhibition. So I think those, you're right, they definitely have strong impacts on young people for sure.
I wanted to jump in and echo what Yemi was saying about, kind of having to be a master or a jack of all trades, basically, when you're kind of holding space in a youth or in a community-based or a community outreach situation. It really is creating a container for things or whatever you need to have happen in that space to happen. So, in terms of building a world in the Afro future, you kind of have to approach it in much the same way. Like, you need all your supplies, you need all your tools, you need sustenance, you need an area for recovery, or bathroom. Like, there are certain things that you kind of always have to be on top of when you're whether you're running a workshop or you work at a youth center or whatever that may be. And I think it's especially in this case with this show, it's a really nice way to kind of apply some of those ideals and some of those ways that we move through space and through the world, like in this iteration.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to pose the same question to you, but before doing so, I just want to remind folks that, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A. I'm going to leave some time in about like 5 or 10 minutes or so we can do some audience Q&A. So in all of this like serial magic that you've been witnessing, if there's a question that comes to mind for either all of the panelists or one in particular, don't be shy and drop it in the Q&A. We'll certainly get to it. But I wanted to ask you the same question as well, Stylo, because I do know that you have a community-based practice as well. And in the last session, we talked a lot about like the magic that is created and the energy in collaging as a group and people collaging together. So in terms of accessing the Afrofuture and manifesting Afrofuturism in your work, where are the intersections for you in terms of community-based practice and Afrofuturism and collage?
I mean, the intersection, it's like right at the center. It's like, it's the crux, right? Like, no man, no person is an island. and if I'm building a future, or if I'm building a world that's going to exist in the future, it can't just be me. I can sustain myself, but I cannot sustain necessarily a world. And that's kind of how I approach this project. There's many moving parts, but they're all integral and they're all necessary. I mean, if we look at however many moving parts are involved in just like a daily day in the life of anyone, it's a myriad of people, of roles that are being played. And so I think that's really important to kind of hang on to, the spirit of collaboration, the spirit of community. I love my workshops. I miss my workshops. I miss being in space, in creative space with people. There's something that's very healing that happens when we can just kind of sit around a table and go through some ripped up magazines and like share some janky scissors and some dried up glue and like try and make some magic. And you know, whether it's in your journal, in your notebook, or whatever have you, you know, I've really been able to connect with some incredible people who they themselves didn't see the creator in them until they took the chance on staying in that space and allowing themselves to be held in that container. So I see the value in real life, in real tangible earthside life. And I mean, for me and the way my ancestry is set up, it just feels like, you know, that's such an integral thing. The village is necessary. There's no world without the village. And I mean, I guess shout out to Marshall McLuhan too for the whole global village theory as well. But it's necessary. It's right at the crux of creation. Like I can create all these collages, but somewhere down the line, someone has donated these collages to me. Someone has given me some supplies to use. You know, there's always some passing through other hands that's happening. And I think without that magic of the world is it's impossible.
Right. You make me miss in-person things so much. I'm like,
I miss it so much.
I need old glue. I need
and you know, like you mentioned, the pivot, the digital pivot was hard. You know, I kind of stopped doing all of those things just cold turkey, and I tried a couple of times. And you know, shout outs to Phoebe Taylor, who is one of the most magical people who's in the room watching tonight, for fostering a space where you can come on Zoom and create for an hour or so. And I realized that that's still very important. So, you know, I'm loving that idea. I'm trying to figure out how I can reconfigure it to work for me. Currently, have woven it into my movement practice, which I had spoken about last week with MK, who was discussing their collage practice as a breathing practice. Shout outs to Good Body Feel. Actually, anyone who's watching right now, if you'd like to register, go to goodbodyfeel.com. I have a collage workshop this Saturday. And we implement stretching, moving, mindfulness, breathing for the first hour, just to kind of get ourselves out of the gunk of daily life, of news, of social media, of XYZ. And then we can drop into some space to cut and paste, keep your camera on, shut it off, do whatever you'd like, chit chat. I have some music playing, and we just cut and paste for an hour. I sift through my collection, we show clippings. That energy is so needed. That's still so, it's a motivation in a way. It's kind of its own adhesive. And so, yeah, I'm kind of conspiring other ways to kind of reach out to the community in that way, to kind of compensate for that lack of physical space. And again, this space is kind of one of those ways.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're finding ways to, I know I've been very resistant to like online anything, but like, you know, it's nice that you're creating these online collage spaces that are safe and welcoming, and cameras off or on if you want them. So y'all heard her this Saturday. She's hosting it.
Yeah, and I get it. Like everyone's zoomed out, so you know, you can just show up as a little box on my screen, and I will be happy to hold some space for you.
I wanted to leave a little bit of space, Pamela, for you know, at the end, just if you have any kind of like last words. I know this is like our last session in terms of like programming for the exhibition, but you have guided stylo so much through this whole process. So I want to leave some space for you to, you know, speak what's on your mind and give voice to kind of all the energy that's coursing through our screens right now.
Well, I also wanted to kind of give context to, you know, someone like myself who studied art history, right? The Western canon, and the importance of, you know, artists like stylo, artists like all of the artists that are in the exhibition, artists like Romare Bearden and Lorna Simpson, and, you know, all these artists who have, you know, used collage as a way to kind of give voice to African folks, to Black folks, to Caribbean folks who have been doing this and remixing culture from time immemorial, you know. And it's like collage has been attributed to, you know, Picasso and Braque and these, you know, European artists who were very influenced by African artists. And so, you know, for me, it's important also to kind of look at that trajectory of how, you know, Stylo talked about collage as this time travel, you know, how the remix is, you know, the past, present, and the future all together. And so it's just really inspiring to see how this art form has kind of brought people together, and how it's like a symbolism of, you know, these traditions and communities, and, you know, being able to be empowered through this medium is really exciting and important. And, you know, as we move into the digital, into this whole other realm of seeing it as a space for real, like, liberation, you know, as a space for imagination and for dreaming, you know, which is something that's so important, I think, in this time, is to recognize how we can create space for the future, you know. And at the museum, we're questioning, like you said off the top, what we do, how we're trying to, you know, grapple with a difficult history within this idea of the white cube, and how we can break out of it. And collage is one of those medias that really allows us to have those conversations. And so I just feel really fortunate to be able to present this project. And you know, it just keeps on giving, you know, keeps on giving. And, you know, I just want to say that, yeah, commend all the artists, and thank you, you know, Nia, everybody, for the opportunity to kind of examine this art form as a really important art form. And yeah, and just to recognize the importance of coming together in this type of platform, and allowing for the conversation. So
agreed, 100% agree. I echo everything that you're saying. And I think what I'll do is, at the end of this, I'll email everyone the link so that you can actually like peruse on your own and put in your headphones and listen to the music. But I'll also, if I can get the link to SoundCloud, I can share that as well. So you kind of have all the tools you need to like immerse yourself in the world.
You know, I'll be there too. Like, if you go to the McMaster Museum of Art's website, it'll all be listed there. The editorials there, the actual artist pages and bios, and their artwork on like static screen is there. The SoundCloud is there. And, you know, if any, like I said, if any other Easter eggs pop up, they'll more than likely be there or in the space. So you have to keep visiting.
Yes.
And spend some time.
Spend some time. You've got a few months, you know, a few months to tell your friends. Y'all can look at it together. Get a big screen, you know, for best
projector.
A projector. Immerse yourself in the world. But I also I'm so grateful for this opportunity, folks. I've kind of been able to like listen in on the background to everything that's been happening, and I'm so glad that folks can come in here and take part and witness this like beautiful magic. And SPATIAL-ESK, I've been watching you just like scroll through and you're looking up as if like you're looking at your baby. I can just like see you haven't stopped smiling this whole
I'm just walking around. I'm just having my own time.
you haven't stopped smiling the whole time, and I just love that energy. So I'll send everyone a quick little follow-up and you know, some more information on McMaster Museum of Art and Nia Center. You know, we are in the process of building Canada's first multidisciplinary Black Art Center, which is such an exciting time for us. So I'm so grateful that all of you were able to spend some time with us this evening. Thank you to the artists, Anna Binta, SPATIAL-ESK, Kofi, Young Yemi. Thank you to you, Stylo. Thank you to you, Pamela. This is the part of the night where, like, even though we all have to go, I just kind of stall because I don't want to go.
We're
but
done. Thank you all so much. I see again so many familiar faces. Thank you for hanging on for the full 2 hours. We understand again, Zoom fatigue is real, and you know, thank you so much. Please spread the word. Pick up a copy of Pitched.
Yes.
Yeah, share the link.
All right, stay tuned to your inboxes, and everyone just please take care. It's tough times out here, so be gentle to yourself, gentle to the world, and we'll see each other online.
Thank you.
Bye.